Welcome to ZenMadman's Hands of the Day. We're going to do a couple hands today. They're kind of short and sweet. I played aces really weird today. This is like a few days later, whatever, who cares? Anyway, I'm in the low jack. We're playing seven-handed. The first player folds, I raise. I've got bad aces, single suited, but suited to an eight. You know, the deuce and the eight, these are very disconnected. I get the button caller, who's a player that I haven't really seen too much out of. I haven't seen them get really out of line, but I haven't seen them, call pre-flop, like limp in, right? I've seen them cold call just now. Anyway, the flop comes queen 7-5, and it's an interesting one. I think I might be range checking this out of position. I'm going to have a high concentration of ace-ace. My opponent's going to have, some queen-queen, but they're going to have king-king, jack-jack, a bunch of rundowns, some, double suited hands with some ace high stuff and whatever. I have aces, which has pretty good equity, right? I'm ahead of anything but a set or two pair at the moment. They can have some monster draws. It's hard for my hand to improve too much, right? I've got a backdoor flush draw, a backdoor wheel draw. The flush draw is not to the ace though, because I'm suited to the eight and the deuce, so that's unfortunate. So also, I guess I can turn an ace. So I do have two outs to the nuts, right? An ace of clubs and ace of spades. Ace of spades would be pretty nice, as then I'd also have a little flush draw to go with it. But regardless, I'd have the nuts if I turned an ace. And then I could make a boat or some such, or it could brick out. Actually, there's no brick. Once the ace came, I think any card would put a straight on board. That didn't pair the board. So regardless, I think I should generally be checking here. I do want to also think about what I'm blocking, right? And the key card here, I'd say, is the ace of diamonds. My opponent cannot have the nut flush draw, and if the flush comes in, they cannot have the nut flush. So that's important. I'm also blocking some straight draws and some backdoor flush draws, but I'm not blocking any of the pairs. So when I check here and my opponent bets, they're going to be weighted towards value hands and maybe like airball type bluffs. They can have some combo draws that are going to be like, weaker flush draws, maybe with a straight draw, with a pair, something like that. So I go ahead and put the check raise in. I think a smaller sizing is better, and I think maybe I need to have some sort of pair blocker here to avoid running into sets too much. A set might just like jam over this, and then, I just fold, right? But because I think against a 3-bet jamming range, my hand does not have very much equity. But anyway, I do go for this bigger raise size. I'm curious what people think. I've seen a play like this recommended in a similar spot, but I might have been mixing it up. Maybe that was a different flop texture, and maybe I was blocking something that was important. I'm not sure. But here anyway, I decided to go for it. I got called, and then the turn was the eight of diamonds. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I made a pair of eights, which is totally irrelevant because I have aces already anyway. But I'm blocking the nuts. My opponent cannot have the nuts. So I'm going to put it in. If they have a set, they're not getting very good odds, right? If they have a set and a flush or something like that, then they can call with the combination of, get their equity and already their equity. But here, if they have a set, they're probably thinking it's not in very good shape. So, I am going to have the nut flush very often in this spot when I take this line. Like almost always when I take this line, I will have the nut flush. But this time I didn't, and my opponent, I think, correctly folds, against my range, against my personal actual range. I think they're doing terrible. I think they're, like, crushed. But against my actual hand, I don't know, pretty good chance they had the best hand. But, they could have had some rundown that didn't have a flush, like, king, queen, jack, 10 with backdoor spades or something, and they're just like, well, I'm not going to call now, and they couldn't beat aces. That's possible. Who knows? All right, on to the next hand. So you might be thinking to yourself, wow, you played aces pretty weird that hand. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're like, oh, that was a great play. Or just like, you're terrible, but that was normal. I don't know. Anyway, you might be asking yourself, can you play aces weirder? Yes, I can. Most of my aces hands are like pretty straightforward and boring. I have a bunch where I flop top set and then win. Yay. But, these aren't they. So I have aces, fairly bad aces, but better than the last ones, right? These are clearly better than ace, ace, eight, deuce. I mean, you'd rather have a 7 and a 3 than an 8 and a deuce, I think. We can make more straights, right? The 7 and the 3 can make a straight. The ace and the 3 can make a straight. That's 2 straights. The only other one could only make 1 straight. And also, it's easier to beat the ace deuce straight. Also, I have a nut flush draw, right? I have an ace 7 of clubs, not a 7-3 of clubs. So that could turn out to be very important. It also might not. Anyway, what happens is this player raises in the low jack -1, which henceforth I will refer to as L1, which is a vertebrae, but whatever. That's going to be what I call that position. I named the low jack. That took off. Let's see how L1 does. Anyway, there's a cold call and then a fold. And 9 times out of 9.1, I'm going to 3-bet this hand. And the cold caller in the middle makes me even more apt to 3-bet this hand. The stack sizes, I'm not sure if that should make me more or less apt to. We're not going to have a very low SPR situation. If I did 3-bet here, I would make it around, 15 or so. And then if one player called, then we'd have about 30-something in the middle. So we'd have around a 5 to 1, 4.5 to 1 SPR. So I could go pot and almost get it in, or piece it off in 3 streets. It could be a little awkward. If I had really strong aces, I would absolutely be 3-betting this. I decided to call. And I think in these spots, in the cutoff on the button, we do want to have some calls, right? With ace-ace, where if the button or one of the blinds decides to squeeze, we can back raise. You know, they can't just squeeze knowing that the only person who can have ace-ace is Corgasm in the L1 here. But anyway, so I do this thing. It's weird. It's a weird way to play aces. You know, definitely we want to cold call some aces in some spots. Are these the aces to cold call? I don't know. Maybe they're a little too good. I'm not sure. Regardless, the hand gets interesting when the flop comes out ace 5-3 with 2 hearts, and my opponent bets pot, just straight out bets pot. So, you know, the first thing I want to do is think about ranges, right? This player should have ace-ace a lot. I should have ace-ace almost never, and that's the nuts. So they have this, okay, it's not the nuts. Deuce-4 is the nuts. Neither of us should have deuce-4 almost ever. Like, I can have like king, deuce-4 double suited. I guess they could have a similar hand. It's hard to think of other hands that have deuce, 4-4. Maybe deuce, 4-4 rather, right? As opposed to deuce, I said deuce 4, king, right? Something like that. But there's really not going to be much deuce 4 in our ranges. Maybe like ace, king, deuce 4 or something. Double suited, right? Either of us could have. But deuce 4 is going to be not very frequent. So I'd say ace-ace is the effective nuts here, right? So I have the effective nuts, but my range doesn't have the effective nuts. It's got the microscopic amount of it, right? Just enough to kind of keep them honest. And so this player, they're like, well, I've got the effective nuts in tons of my range, so I'm going to bet. Okay, so what do I want to do? Well, I think I need to just call here, because if I put a raise in, it's just really, really weird. And I'm not going to want to be trying to balance that with bluffs and whatever. I think this is a spot where when they bet full pot on a board like this, with their range against my range, I just have 2 plays, call and fold. So I call. And then the turn's a jack of hearts. So that's obviously not something I love to see, as the flush just came in, right? They certainly could have been bluffing the flop with king high hearts. They could also maybe just have the king of hearts blocker along with maybe an ace blocker. And, you know, I mean, they could have ace king deuce 4. We don't know, right? But it certainly seemed likely that they have the case ace, and also fairly likely that they have a hand like the king of hearts if they're betting this here, because not only do they not want me to have ace-ace, they can kind of assume I probably don't have ace-ace. They don't want me to have ace-x, and they don't want me to have a nut flush draw, because those are hands that I'm going to continue a lot, right? So, you know, they did bet into 2 opponents also, so their range should be very strong. The range of betting hands, right? I don't think they're betting 100% pot 100% of the time 3 ways out of position on this board. I'm not sure though. Anyway, they go ahead and pot it again. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting 2 to 1 with a boat draw. I have a 3, which is blocking my own outs, which is unfortunate. I have no hearts, so I'm not blocking any of the hands that beat me, right? So that's also unfortunate. I think my hand is good some of the time, and I think um, when my hand's not good, I have equity, right? Even though I'm blocking one of my outs, instead of 10 outs, I'll have 9 outs, right? 9 times 2.5, what is that? It's like 22.5% equity, something like that. So I still have a reasonable chance of improving. I only need 33% equity to call this for like direct odds, but I think I have positive. I have positive implied odds unless I'm planning to fold, um, unless I'm planning to call like a brick river, right? Which I'm not sure what I was going to do on the river, but the hand kind of gets easier here, where a 4th flush card comes, which makes it less likely that they have the flush, even though it's a 5, so it's not really that relevant. One thing I should note is that because 2 of the hearts on the turn, like the ace of hearts on the flop and the jack of hearts on the turn, because 2 of those hearts out there are Broadway cards, there are going to be less combinations of flushes, right? When the ace is on board, it's less likely someone has a flush because people play tons of suited aces. They play a lot of suited kings, but not as many as aces. They play a good amount of suited queens. They don't play a whole lot of suited like 8 deuce, right? Or 8-4 or 6-3. The 3's on board, but the point being, because there's those 2 big hearts, I think they're a little less likely to have it on the turn, even though their betting line strongly suggests that they either have the nuts or the nut blocker. So now I have to think about, well, if they check, I mean, I guess I'm just going to jam, but like, should I go for like a smaller bet against a flush? I don't know. I probably would have jammed because my hand just looked ridiculous anyway. And, oh, no, well, I guess they don't have to make that decision. They bet 108. They bet pot, right? And I've only got 106.61. So not a lot to think about here. Technically, I only have the 3rd nuts, right? They could have deuce 4 of hearts. And if they do, good for them. And they could have 5-5. That would kind of be a reasonable hand, right? Like they flopped a set, they bet. The turn's a little weird. Like why would they bet that big with the middle set there? I don't know. But I don't have too much to worry about. I call, and we'll see their hand. And they did have ace king deuce 3. So seeing that they have ace king deuce 3, they certainly could have had ace king deuce 4, right? So I think maybe there's a little bit more deuce 4 in their range than I would have given them credit for. This, I believe, is a loose open from L1. Like, having the suited ace, great. Having an ace king, also great. Having a 2 and a 3 in your hand, not so great. So I believe that this is a little bit overly optimistic, over aggro open raise. But, I'm not a super expert or anything at it, at the Pot Limit Omaha. Anyway, so that's the hand. I think I like how they played the hand, right? They flopped top and bottom pair with a gut shot, and then they had the backdoor nut flush, the front door nut flush blocker. The turn comes, boom. Okay, they can represent the nut flush. Maybe they can get folds on the river by hands like ace jack, or if I happen to have like 5-5, maybe they can fold me out. And then the river comes, and it's a little weird. I'm not totally sure what they were doing. I guess they were trying to get me to fold a smaller flush. And there's a pretty good hand for that, where, the king of hearts means any flush I have can't be the nut flush. And the ace and the 3 are blocking a lot of boats, right? So they're blocking a lot of boat combos, and they're blocking a nut flush combo. So I pretty much like their play. I think preflop's a little... And I'm not certain about the turn just because they have the aces and 3s, but maybe they can fold out ace 5, at least... Yeah, so I like their hand, their play, except I think preflops may be a little questionable. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hit like and subscribe. If you wouldn't like to see more videos like this, let me know what you would like to see. All right, I'm making poker videos, and I listen to the masses. Let me know what you're interested in. Okay, yeah. We'll have another outtake at the end. All right, pieces. What is up? We've got a couple of pocket aces hands here today. So this is not what I want this to look like. So we're going to go all the way back. All the way back. Okay. Anyway.